The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Just when you think Florida State recruiting's about to turn the corner, they pull the rug right out from underneath you.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I said a few months ago that if they didn't get this player, I was going to have a rant, and today is that day. It is absolutely, unequivocally ridiculous that Florida State not only didn't get this player, he's a kid that lives 30, 40 minutes from Tallahassee. He's going to Cal. Cal. Yeah. The Cal Bears, the ones in Northern California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. Cal. The same school that out-recruited Florida State for him because they literally spent more effort in South Georgia than the Florida State staff. Cal. The Cal Bears put more effort into recruiting a player in Thomasville, Georgia, than the Florida State Seminoles. A player that could just about drive blind from where he lives and hit Doak Campbell Stadium. The Cal Bears out-recruited Florida State. Cam Brooks, defensive lineman, Thomas County Central High School, the same high school as Charlie Ward, by the way. Nice little coincidence there. The 1993 Heisman Trophy winner for the national champion Noles. Yeah, that same Cam Brooks has committed to Cal. Florida State didn't even get an official visit, and he committed to Cal. This is one of the biggest flops on an individual recruitment I can remember. And to be clear, the blame is not on the defensive staff here because that's pretty much changed over. This is on Mike Norvell for getting Florida State into a circumstance for being 2-10. 2-10. That's a Mike Norvell problem. He shouldn't have had to have changed staffs because he should have made staff changes prior if there had been any failures, and he should have made some better hires overall, offensively and defensively. There's no doubt about it. The D-line coach that just retired, Odell Hangins, this is not his fault either. He's still around the program, and he can still help anyway. This is a Mike Norvell problem. He's never been a great recruiter. They haven't had a top 10 class at Florida State since he's been on campus. This is a Mike Norvell problem. Cannot happen. Cam Brooks is a national recruit. Just for the record, before he had committed to Cal, Florida State, Clemson, and Ohio State were three of his other visits. And yes, Cal had an OV set up as well. But this is a national recruit. He pretty much could have picked up the phone and called any school in the country. I have made multiple trips down to Thomas County Central to watch him practice and or play in games. He's a dude. That's an NFL player in your backyard at a position. Florida State has been one of the most dominant programs in all of college football for a long time. Even though they were terrible last year, if Darrell would have went to the draft, he'd have got drafted too. They'd have had multiple guys drafted off a 2-10 team from the defensive line. Joshua Farmer, for those who don't know, 4th round. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Cal. This is just horrendous. Cal. There's no way around this. Florida State's still going to recruit Cam Brooks. I'm sure of that. I don't need to make any phone calls. Everybody still will. But again, I have been told that Cal put in more effort than the Florida State Seminoles did in recruiting Cam Brooks. Point blank, no ifs, no ands, no buts. Cal. I wonder what the distance is from Thomasville, Georgia, to anywhere you want to pick in the Bay Area. I guarantee it's not the same as the 30-some mile drive due north from Tallahassee to Thomasville. One road, straight shot. Wow. But that's Florida State football right now. They'd started to trend in a lot of directions on the recruiting side that I liked. But the missteps prior to all the coaches coming in December is the big reason for this. I was told earlier in Cam Brooks's recruitment that he wanted to see what they had this spring, rightfully so. New staff, new scheme, and all that. But he doesn't have a relationship with them because they had to change staffs after a 2-10 season because Norvell made a bunch of goof ups. This is where we are. I know Terrence Knighton can recruit. I know Terrence Knighton can develop. He's proven that. But it's about relationships. If you asked me to list the first 3 things in recruiting that are critical to any player, number 1 is relationships. Number 2 is relationships. And number 3, it's relationships. Norvell is not a great recruiter, which surprises me because he seems like a very personable man. But again, no top 10 class. And I never really hear recruits say he's the guy that's most important for Florida State. I'll hear him say that they like talking to him, this and that. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him. But he doesn't close for whatever reason the way a lot of other head coaches do. I don't know what the deal is with that. I can't put my finger on it. So I'll leave it at that. But he still also failed to make the right decisions to prevent 2-10. 2-10 cost Florida State Cam Brooks, and it's probably cost Florida State some other guys as well. And yeah, I'm ticked off, and yeah, this is a rant, but I'm getting tired of covering failures. You should be, as a Florida State fan, tired of listening to failures. I just cover the news. I tell it like it is, and I do not care if somebody doesn't like it. That's the bottom line. Now, how do you repair this? I got a couple of things here that are primary and one that's debatable. Number 1 is to win this year. But the way this kind of situation is, it makes me wonder, is the Alabama game a must win, which I don't think they're going to win that game. I mean, I'd love to see myself be wrong on that, but do I really think they're going to beat Bama? No, I don't. But Florida State needs credibility. Winning in general is going to help, but they can't just go 6-6, 7-5 this year. It's just not good enough. Some way, somehow, they got to find a way to go 9-3. Do I have faith in that with Norvell at the top? I do not. And I think the Cam Brooks situation, that is a signal that he may not think that way either, or at least it's part of it. Again, relationships, far and away the number 1 thing in recruiting. That is not debatable. But nobody wants to play for a team that stinks either. They have to get a big-time win that the national, not local, the national media completely loves for Florida State, preferably in the first half of the season. Bama's probably that game. If they beat Miami, that would be great. But Bama has more cachet, obviously. Florida State is up against it here because they've got a bunch of these visits lined up. We'll see how it goes, but this gives me pause. Florida State didn't even get an OV out of Cam Brooks. I assume they still will, but I don't know the answer to that. I haven't asked anybody yet. But I'm a little bit irked, to say the least. So, second thing, and this is if it doesn't work out this season, like if they go 7-5, they've got to find somebody to buy out to just get it over with. I've said it before. I don't think they'll do it. I don't think they've got the money for it. I'd be shocked. I, again, would love to be wrong. But if they go 6-6, 7-5 this year, he's got to go. Do I think that'll happen? Again, no, I do not. Then third, this is the one. It just depends on how you want to look at it. But this is a general phrase. Take it for what it's worth. More recruiting effort. Terrence Knighton can recruit. He's going to get a chance during this May evaluation period that's going on right now to get to know Cam and everybody else for that matter. I'm sure he's going to go up to Thomas County Central, and I'm sure he's tried to be on the phone if he hasn't already talked to him. I have no idea, but at some point that's going to happen. You got to build the relationship. It's not Terrence Knighton's fault. He didn't get hired until after last season was over. It is what it is. Tony White, Knighton, and the rest of the staff have a lot of work to do. I mean, cows across the country, and they stink. I saw them play last year. They're not good. I saw them play live. They hustle. They play hard. That is not a school that's going anywhere. They lost like 4 or 5 transfer portal running backs this spring. That program is in disarray, and he picked Cal over Florida State. Absolutely mind-numbing.
The NBA playoffs roll on, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. FanDuel makes betting easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. There's so many ways to bet your favorite player props or your teams, your sides, your point spreads. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance at even bigger payouts. Check out tonight's NBA playoff odds. The Warriors 4.5-point underdogs on the road after going up 3-1 on the Rockets. There's nothing like that urgency of an elimination game. The Lakers also on the verge of elimination. They're 5.5-point favorites at home versus the Timberwolves. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
You are Locked On Balls, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers.
Tennessee basketball has picked up another commit via the transfer portal, the third of the cycle, when Amaree Abram made quick work of his visit to Tennessee earlier this week, calling his pledge and committing to the University of Tennessee on Tuesday afternoon. Amaree Abram, again, 12.3 points, 4.4 rebounds, 1.7 assists at Louisiana Tech a season ago. And again, he commits to Tennessee after visiting campus on Monday. Tennessee needed a shooting guard. Tennessee needed a guard. You got Jacoby Gillespie, point guard from Maryland. That's great. You got Jalen Carey, power forward from Vanderbilt. That's awesome. Nate Amin, of course, the late signee from the high school ranks, number 2 overall in the class. He's going to be your small forward and, the 3, if you will. But Tennessee needed a guard, right? Tennessee needed a shooter. Tennessee needed another backcourt player, and that's why Tennessee was looking at tons of different guys, specifically Rodney Rice over the last couple of weeks, who was teammates with Jacoby Gillespie at Maryland this past year. But ultimately, you have Amaree Abram, who commits to Tennessee, and again, played Louisiana Tech this past year, but started his collegiate career in the Power 5 level, and ultimately played in the SEC the year after. I'll get to that here in a moment. But this past year with Louisiana Tech, again, 12.3 points, 4.4 rebounds, 1.7 assists. He shot 42.2% from the field, not bad. 37.3% from three-point land, not bad again. 32.1 minutes per game, so durable, plays a lot of minutes in each contest. Again, that was this past season in 24 to 25. He started his collegiate career at Ole Miss. Let's see here. He started his collegiate career at Ole Miss. So yeah, that's right. Starting 22 of 33 games in 2022 and 2023, averaging 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. So he started his career at Ole Miss. Okay, so he started his college basketball career at Ole Miss in the SEC. That was in the 2022-23 season. Then he went to Georgia Tech in 23 and 24, but just played in 10 games that season when he averaged 3.4 points per game, 1.7 rebounds per game, and 1.1 assists per game. But knows what this league is all about. Again, starting 22 times a couple years ago at Ole Miss, scoring 8 points a game, okay? Veteran, played in some different systems, played in some different leagues, but what I really, really like about Amaree Abram is that 42.2% from the field and that 37.3% from three-point land. That's not bad. I like that an awful lot. The 12.3 points per game, almost 5 rebounds per game, almost 2 assists per game. That's great. But the percentages from the field, when you're talking about shooting, 42 from the field, not bad. 37 from downtown, that's getting it done. And of course, you got Amaree Abram, who is joining the likes of Jacoby Gillespie, Jalen Carey, in this comprising now, what is this transfer portal class? Jacoby Gillespie, of course, downtown Greenville, Tennessee, one of the top players available in the transfer portal this cycle, coming over from Maryland. I think On3 has him ranked as the number 10 overall player in the transfer portal. Point guard, guy that just wants to be a Vol, right? And a guy that's bringing some Sweet 16 experience and a lot of different things in his arsenal for his game here to Knoxville. Jalen Carey bringing some toughness and bringing a true front court presence in terms of scoring, something Tennessee hasn't had in, gosh, man, quite some time. And again, is he going to be Grant Williams, Admiral Schofield? No, he's not. But Tennessee still hasn't had a consistent front court scoring presence in a while. I mean, Jonas Adu was that a little bit last year. You had Olivier Combois, who was, hit or miss in that regard, 2 years ago. But consistency, the ability to play inside out, not to be so predictable on the offensive end. I think Jalen Carey is going to provide a lot of that for sure. And then, of course, Amaree Abram joining the likes of those two guys. The high school signees now. So you got 3 from the portal. You have 4 from the high school ranks. Nate Amin, okay, he moved up from number 5 all the way to number 2 in his class. 5-star plus. Going to be a lottery type guy after this season. Nate Amin's the headliner there. And Amari Evans, guard, 4-star. 4-star center Dwayne Brown, who is a big fella, about 250 pounds. Point guard Troy Henderson, who is a lower-ranked player, but played AAU basketball with Nate Amins. Troy Henderson actually committed to Tennessee a couple weeks ago and then, signed shortly after that. So those are the 4 guys who committed and signed with Tennessee from the high school rank. So that's 4. Couple that with 3 from the transfer portal so far. That's 7. Those are 7 new pieces for Rick Barnes in this 2025-2026 basketball roster. So then you add that to the returners that are set to be. You hear my voice crack right there. You add those to the returners that are set to be back for Rick Barnes and company this year, and it's 3 front court players, 1 back court. Felix Okpara, Cade Phillips, J.P. Estrella, and Bishop Boswell. So that brings the total number to 11. Okay, so that's 11. 2 spots are open. Tennessee's going to fill at least one more of them somehow. I think Tennessee would benefit greatly if they filled both of those, because you never truly understand, you never truly know, I guess, if you're going to run into another Cam Carr situation. And, college athletics here in this day and age in 2025, you just simply don't know, right? So Tennessee's at 11 right now, 2 open spots, and I think they're going to fill at least 1, but I think they love to fill 2. Of course, Tennessee had to say goodbye to 6 seniors, and that's rare in this day and age, right? At least, I guess, how many homegrown players they had. And the homegrown players, I count Jordan Gainey in there. I know he didn't begin his career here at Tennessee, but Jordan Gainey's been a part of this program for a while now. Sakai Ziegler, Jamon Mashak, Jordan Gainey, Chaz Lanier, Igor Milicic, and Darlington Stone Dubar. Those are the 6 seniors that Tennessee had to say goodbye to. So roster reconstruction, I think this is something that Rick Barnes really enjoys. I think this is something that makes him different than those of his, peers in the industry. A lot of those guys that have had so much success and have been coaching for so long, but decided to hang it up early or go ahead and go, speed up retirement a little bit by maybe a season or 2. I think Rick Barnes loves attacking this time of the calendar. I think he loves, crushing a 3-year recruitment into 3 weeks. I think he really enjoys that. And I think the evidence speaks for himself the past couple of years. Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier, and then so on and so forth. We'll see what comes of this transfer portal class. But again, the third one joining the class via the transfer portal, Amaree Abram, who committed to Tennessee from Louisiana Tech on Tuesday afternoon. And over there at VolQuest.com, he caught up with Austin Price. Here's a couple of quotes. I encourage you to go read the whole story. I'm just giving you a couple of the quotes. He said, quote, "I knew that they win and they're always tough and they just get it done. They're always in the NCAA tournament," when speaking on the University of Tennessee. He continued to say, quote, I feel like Tennessee made it home on my visits. I feel like the coaching staff and the environment just felt like home and made me feel welcome, and I really, really enjoyed my visit." On what he brings to the table, quote, "I bring a lot to the table. Toughness. I can be a glue guy. I can do anything the team wants. I'm a two-way player and can play on the ball and off the ball, and a guy that can guard the ball pretty well in anything that the team needs." It's a really good mindset to have. That is a mindset that Rick Barnes really, really covets in a basketball player, and hopefully that is exactly who Amaree Abram is, the latest commit from the transfer portal for the University of Tennessee.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA playoff game. Finding great seats, though, that used to be a challenge until Game Time. With last-minute deals, all-in prices, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as the beginning of the game gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Let's talk about a new addition to the BYU football program via the transfer portal, and that is one Reggie Frischknecht. Now, he's got a little bit of an interesting backstory. Those of you who pay attention to Utah high school football may not know Reggie's backstory even as much as I do, and I had to learn a little bit about myself. The thing about it is I knew that Reggie was a guy who was an absolute sensation when he was playing at Manti High School. Now, Manti High School has been competing, if I recall correctly, at the 3A level and may have actually been at the 2A level that he competed at in his high school career. Traditionally, guys from anything lower than the 4A ranks in the state of Utah are all but written off by a lot of high-level Division I coaches, especially at the Power 4 level. There's just a lot of question marks about, okay, does their ability translate over? The level of competition they're playing against, is it really up to speed as what you'd see in the 4, 5A, or 6A ranks in Utah high school football? Well, Reggie Frischknecht showed that what he showed at the high school level, which is absolute dynamite in terms of his overall production. I wrote this down when I looked him up. 163 career receptions over his 3 or 4 seasons at Manti, 2,709 yards, and 40 touchdowns. 40 touchdowns in his career. His senior season at Manti, 93 receptions, 1,360 yards, and just 17 touchdowns alone in that season. He was a guy that was a routine all-conference player of the week type caliber player his entire senior season for Manti. Well, that did not translate into a lot of high-level interest from colleges, and he ultimately enrolled literally just down the street at Snow College in Ephraim, Utah. Now, any of you who are familiar with Central Utah, Manti is neighbors with Ephraim in many respects. They kind of feel like they're the Provo and Orem of Central Utah, where they're literally like one and the same in many respects. I know. Don't get mad at me, Manti people. Don't get mad at me, Ephraim people. I've got siblings who went to Ephraim. I've been down there. I'm aware, but it's that close. And he went to Snow College this past year and had an absolutely marvelous freshman campaign. He ultimately emerged from this past season with 38 receptions for the Badgers, 740 yards, and 14 touchdowns. He's a touchdown machine, more than double of his next closest teammate and the most at the NJCAA level, which is the National Junior College Association of America. It's the NCAA for junior colleges. He was absolutely awesome. And as a full qualifier out of high school, he didn't have to go to the junior college route. He was able to enroll at a 4-year university as soon as that season ended. And he ultimately signed during the winter months with Weber State. Now, he went to Weber State, went through spring ball, and I think ultimately decided, you know what? I think I'm better than this level, because he re-entered the transfer portal. I can only read into that from my vantage point that he went to Weber State, realized, you know what? I'm better than playing at the FCS level, ultimately decided to go back out on the open market, and BYU, by virtue of losing guys like Keelan Marion to the transfer portal, need a wide receiver or two to fill out the roster here. The bigger thing, I think, for a guy like Reggie Frischknecht is he has got size on his size. That's one thing I have not mentioned yet. He's 6'4". You can't teach that size as a wide receiver. And playing at the 2 or 3A level that Manti competed at, he is a man amongst boys at that size, at that level of football. And I think some of the question marks, okay, how does that translate over? I've also been told he runs somewhere in the 4.5s in terms of his overall speed. So at 6'4", listed at between 190 and 200 pounds. And if he runs a 4.5, how in the world did this guy not get picked up at some level other than what BYU is getting him at right now as a 4-year qualifier with 3 years to play? This could be a really, really savvy pickup for Fesi Sitake and company, because Fesi has shown that big-bodied receivers in BYU's offense can succeed. Look no further than Chase Roberts. Chase Roberts is not 6'4". I think he's listed at 6'3", but They have had success with big-bodied receivers. Neil Pau'u, who actually coached Reggie down at Snow College, what was Neil, 6'4" himself? They've had Cody Hoffman in the past. They've had Austin College. Guys who were 6'3", 6'4", Mitch Matthews at 6'6". They have had Nick Kurtz. Man, I'm pulling out all kinds of names. You remember Nick Kurtz? Yeah, the 6'6" giant himself. A lot of really, really tall, good receivers in BYU's recent history. And I think that's what Reggie Frischneck's got to look at here. Now, is he going to come to BYU and start right away? I would highly doubt that. He will have to come in, learn the playbook, compete for playing time with a lot of other wide receivers who are chomping at the bit to show what they're capable of. I figure BYU's projected starting wide receiver trio for me right now is Chase Roberts, JoJo Phillips, and Parker Kingston. Now, at 6'4", he's not going to likely play the slot position that Parker Kingston occupies, but he could fill in at either spot between JoJo or Chase Roberts. But that does not include guys like Cody Hagan, Tei Nakua, Marquise Taliulu, Dominique McKenzie, LaMason Waller. There's a lot of wide receivers on this roster for BYU. Had already opportunities to go through spring camp and show themselves what they're capable of to the coaches, that a guy like Reggie Frischneck's going to have to come in and unseat for playing time. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's unlikely. All I am saying is that this is if you want to call it a gamble, this is the right type of gamble for BYU to take. He proved himself at the junior college level. We have seen junior college players succeed at BYU at high levels across the board at literally every position you can name on the gridiron. I think Reggie Frischneck, if 6'4", 200 pounds, the production he had in high school combined with what he produced at Snow College, yeah, this is the right type of guy to bring in. And yes, maybe this year he plays a bit of a role, where he's maybe playing special teams, kind of learning the offense, getting up to speed. But then as a junior and senior in 2026, 2027, does he emerge finally and make the position his own? That is the ideal scenario for Reggie Frischneck could do for BYU. His name's not easy to say. Frischneck is going to be one that a lot of people out there are going to butcher. And I was doing some research on him, and there's a really funny story written by an ESPN reporter about Reggie's dad. Now, Reggie's dad, Devin, also was a junior college star at Snow College, ultimately went to Washington State, played for the Red Cougars, as it were, up there on the Palouse, and apparently had a breakout performance in this individual game. And the story that ESPN wrote said that his name was just butchered time after time after time in the game that he starred in for the Washington State Cougars, the Wazoo Cougars. Now, Reggie obviously coming closer to home, I think this could be a really, really good time for him to join the program, because he's not going to come in, as I mentioned, with the expectation he's got to step into a starting role. He's got to be the guy. He's got to produce at this level. That is not the case here. He's got time on his side because, as I mentioned, he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. He's got a redshirt year as well. So if he comes in and he falls too far behind, you just redshirt him this year. You let him really train, get up to speed, work out with BYU strength and conditioning coaches, learn the playbook inside and out, and then maybe unleash him next year as a redshirt sophomore who's got 3 years of eligibility to really make an imprint on this BYU football program. I don't think Reggie will be the last wide receiver BYU looks at. I think there's a lot of guys out there. Tiger Bachmeier is a big name out there who just recently entered the transfer portal from Stanford. The Bachmeier family, his brother as well, there's Hank, it's Bear. Hank already played out his eligibility, but Bear was a 4-star quarterback prospect, while him and Tiger, which, by the way, incredible names, Hank, Bear, and Tiger Bachmeier. What a trio of names there. But the 2 younger Bachmeier brothers are in the transfer portal, leaving Stanford. Could BYU swoop in and pick them up? We'll see. There's been some rumor about BYU's interest in them. I know there was interest in them when they were in the high school ranks. Could that come back around this time? I think a guy like Tiger Bachmeier, I think he could be like a Reggie Frischneck, a savvy pickup for Fesi Sitake if he's interested in taking on that role. But the good news is Reggie, I think, is going to become a guy that BYU fans are going to be excited to root for. And the nice part is he's one of those fun stories that comes out of small school Utah high school football and emerges as what could be a really, really fine player for BYU. I think the best example of it right now is Bruce Mitchell. Bruce Mitchell played at South Summit High School up there in Camas, Utah. It's two-way football. And Bruce was a man amongst boys. And I watched him with my own eyes, and I had question marks if it was going to translate over when he committed to BYU. Well, It didn't translate over when he signed as a defensive lineman, but since coming over to the offensive line, he's been an absolute revelation as BYU's projected starting center this year. You can find those guys at the lower ranks of the high school football level in Utah. Just as a little more extra digging to unearth that proverbial diamond in the rough along the way.